Why would someone walk away from $1 million job to sell books online? That's the question that echoed through Jeff Bezos' life the day he shocked Wall Street. What did he see that the rest of the world missed? Jeff wasn't broke. In fact, he was living the dream, a high-paying role at a hedge fund in New York, top-floor office, luxury lifestyle, and a future already paved with success. But something was eating him from the inside, a vision he couldn't unsee. While the world was sleeping on the internet, Jeff saw it as the gold rush of the modern age. And one question haunted him daily. What if I don't try? He made a decision, not logical, not safe, but bold. He packed his things, jumped in his old Datsun with his wife, and drove across the country to Seattle. But why Seattle? Why now? Why throw it all away for something so uncertain? Because Jeff wasn't chasing money. He was chasing time. He knew the window of opportunity was closing fast, and if he didn't jump, someone else would. No office, no investors, just a small, dimly lit garage, the birthground of what would become the most powerful company on earth, Amazon. But back then, it was a joke to most people. He left Wall Street for a garage? Books? Seriously? Yes, he began with books, not because he loved reading, but because books had millions of titles and didn't expire. He coded Amazon's first version himself, worked 16 hours a day, took customer calls, packed boxes, drove them to the post office. His hands weren't just on the keyboard, they were on every single part of the process. And his desk? A wooden door with 4 cheap legs. Why would a man who once worked in glass towers now sit on a $60 table in a freezing garage? Because he wasn't building a bookstore. He was building a legacy. People mocked him. The media didn't care. Competitors laughed. But Jeff had a rule: obsess over the customer, not the competition. And that obsession, it became his weapon. Orders started trickling in, then flowing, then flooding. One day he looked at the data and realized, we're not just selling books, we're building trust. But the world still didn't know what was coming. They thought Amazon was just another startup. What they didn't see was that Jeff had already drawn the blueprint for global domination. How does a man go from a garage to ruling the internet? It started with one insane question: what if I don't try? And the courage to answer it with action. What happens when your dream starts falling apart in front of the whole world? Amazon was growing, but so was the pressure. Jeff Bezos had taken a gamble most wouldn't even dare to think about. But the internet was changing fast, and not everyone believed it was here to stay. Why did they call him a fool when he was just getting started? The year was 1999. Amazon had gone public. Investors were pouring in. The media finally started paying attention, but not in a good way. Headlines mocked him. The online bookstore bubble. .com clown show. Critics claimed Amazon would collapse like every other internet company. Were they right? Was Amazon just a digital fantasy built on nothing but hype? And then, it happened. The .com bubble burst in 2000. Tech stocks tanked. Amazon's stock price dropped from $107 to $6. That's a 90% crash. Most of Silicon Valley crumbled. Startups disappeared overnight. Billion-dollar companies became memories. Could Amazon survive a storm that was destroying giants? Employees panicked. Investors fled. News channels predicted Amazon's death. Bezos stood at the center of it all, watching his creation bleed. But what did he do? He didn't hide. He didn't run. He didn't even blink. Why was Jeff Bezos calm when the world was burning? Because he understood one thing they didn't. This wasn't about short-term money. It was about long-term domination. While everyone else tried to survive, Jeff focused on building. He slashed costs, shut down unnecessary operations, laid off hundreds, but with a plan. He personally wrote to investors promising a roadmap beyond survival. And while people laughed, he launched innovations no one had the guts to attempt. One-click shopping, faster than anyone imagined. verified customer reviews, turning buyers into marketers, Amazon Prime, a subscription idea no one took seriously until it exploded. Why risk everything when your company is already bleeding? Because Bezos wasn't afraid to lose in the short term, to win in the long run. Was it stubbornness or strategy? That's what no one understood back then. The chaos wasn't killing Amazon, it was refining it. The storm wasn't the end, it was the ignition. Behind the scenes, Amazon Web Services, AWS, was quietly being developed, a move that would later flip the entire internet economy. How do you go from the brink of collapse to becoming the backbone of the digital world? Simple. You don't panic. You build. And you believe, even when no one else does. And Jeff Bezos? He wasn't just building a company anymore. He was building an empire inside the fire. But what happens when the fire turns into fuel? That's what Chapter 3 will reveal. How does a man who once packed books in a garage end up controlling the entire internet economy? Amazon was no longer just a website. It was becoming a living, breathing machine, evolving beyond books, beyond borders, beyond expectations. Jeff Bezos wasn't just building a company. He was rewriting capitalism itself. But what was the real plan all along? Was bookselling just a cover? Behind the public success, something deeper was happening. While people still thought Amazon was just an online store, Jeff was already steps ahead, working silently on a product no one could see, yet everyone would one day depend on. What secret was he building in the shadows of Amazon's rising empire? It was called Amazon Web Services, AWS, a move that confused even his closest advisors. Why is a retail company trying to sell computing power? They didn't get it. But Jeff did. He saw the future again. While others were thinking about selling products, he was thinking about owning the infrastructure of the entire digital age. Why sell products when you can power the world's platforms instead? AWS launched quietly, but within years it was hosting Netflix, NASA, even the CIA. Amazon was no longer just competing in e-commerce. It was quietly becoming the foundation of the internet. And then, the Prime era began. Bezos turned a simple loyalty program into a lifestyle ecosystem. Music, movies, next-day delivery, all wrapped inside one subscription. Was Amazon a shopping site or a trap no one could escape? Billions poured in. Competitors couldn't keep up. And Jeff? He wasn't slowing down. He bought Whole Foods, entered space with Blue Origin, and turned Alexa into your household assistant. But what was the cost of this unstoppable rise? Critics began asking, is Amazon too powerful? Is Bezos too rich? Is anyone safe from the reach of this empire? But the truth was, Bezos had already achieved what very few ever could. He became the richest man alive, not by accident, but by design. How does a man with no retail background, no logistics experience, and no media empire end up controlling all three? Because he followed a rule that the world never understood. If you only do things where you know the answer, your company goes nowhere. He was never afraid to take the leap, even into the unknown. And it was this mindset that turned a garage into a trillion-dollar beast. But here's the final question. What if he never took that first risk? What if he stayed comfortable on Wall Street? We'd never know the name Amazon. We'd never ask Alexa. And Jeff Bezos would have just been another man in a suit. So now ask yourself, what dream are you sitting on just because you're scared to leap? Because the garage is always waiting, but only a few dare to build an empire inside it. This isn't just Jeff Bezos' story. It's a blueprint. You don't need millions. You need clarity, courage, and commitment. So ask yourself, what's stopping you from building your empire? Don't wait for perfect. Start with what you have, even if it's just a garage. If this story hit you deep, like the video, subscribe for more real stories, and drop a rocket in the comments if you're ready to launch your vision. Because legends don't wait for chances. They create them.